A win is a win for the 19-year-old who gets 2 wins in 2 days in Chula Vista, and he ends the season on the highest possible note. So Connor Fields gets the win, and he joins us down on the track.
With me here on the finish line, the winner of the double this weekend, Connor Fields from the USA. How are you feeling right now?
This feels 100 times better than I could have ever imagined.
Congratulations, Connor Fields from the US. 3 out of 3 BMX Supercross history being made right here in Norway.
I can sleep at night really easily going into this race, nice and confident. When I get in the gate, I can say that I've done this before. Everyone likes to remind themselves that they've done this before, but I can actually say that I've done this before.
Connor Fields gets into that second spot.
Oh, see the move from Connor Fields in the first turn.
Look at Connor Fields. He is hunting him down.
Oh, Connor's bobbles.
I'm kind of just going in, elbows up, helmet on, going for it.
The world time trial champion, Connor the Conman Field goes fastest through the first split.
Coming into 2012, 19-year-old Connor Fields of the USA was the prodigal son of BMX racing. He was ranked number 1 in the UCI BMX series, having just won 3 World Cup events. Everything was looking good for the London Games. Connor qualified through to the final in pole position with the inside lane, lane number 1.
In London at 19, I didn't have much or any experience with those big types of events with a lot on the line. So when I lost, it felt like the end of the world.
After seeing the devastation that he really took to heart when he had been the top seed going into that last race, it took him a long time to recover.
In London, it literally felt as if the sun wasn't coming out tomorrow because I didn't perform and get the thing that I was going for.
Heading into the Rio Games only 4 years later, things were looking good for Connor. He had a lot of riding under his belt and was now a regular on the podium at both national and international events. Fighting hard to regain his form, he was back looking for redemption from London. He was fit, he was winning, and now had the experience.
Mr. Connor Fields, Team USA. I've known Connor since we were little kids racing on the American Series.
At 15, he was the youngest rider ever to ride on a Supercross track.
He's a really great bike rider.
I think I wanted to be a pro ever since the first time I ever saw a pro. When I was 7 years old, I used to watch the Pro-Ams at our BMX track, and those guys were the heroes to me. And then the first time I went to a national and I saw real pros, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. I want to do that. I was that kid that would finish his race and run straight to the stands to watch the pros. And, I think as far as I can remember, I wanted to be a pro and I wanted to be a champion. I think every guy in my generation grew up idolizing Kyle Bennett. He was the most fun guy to watch ride. He would throw style, he would just have fun, and he just made it look so easy. And he won a lot when I was growing up. So I think from my generation's hero was Kyle Bennett. Leading into the 2016, showed up in February at the U.S. National Championships. I won that. Went to the first World Cup of the Year in Argentina. I took second. Everything was just trending in the right direction.
Coming into 2016, Connor was in top form. He was leading the U.S. National Point Series and reached the podium at the first World Cup of the Year at Santiago del Estero.
And then I was training for World Cup round 2, put my hand out to brace for a fall, and broke my wrist.
After 5 hours of extensive surgery and with numerous pins in his wrist, doctors strongly advised Connor from even attempting to compete in Rio.
So I had surgery April 9th. I never take pain medicine, and I took the pain pills for this. It was so painful. I saw another doctor just to get a second opinion, and his was even worse. He said there was no chance. At that point in time, we had no idea if A, I was even going to be healthy enough for the Olympics, or B, if I was gonna make the team, my plan all along was I was gonna do everything I could for the Olympics, because when I'm 40, I don't want any regrets.
The U.S. had secured 3 spots for the men at the Olympics. The first spot was awarded to the top-ranked rider, and anyone reaching the podium at the World Championships would earn enough points to secure that spot. The second spot went to the winner of the Olympic trials event, while the last spot was left to the coach's choice. With a broken wrist and little chance to prove himself on his bike, Conor's opportunities were narrowing fast.
You know, watching the Worlds, I had all the points calculated of who needed to get what and how it all needed to play out. And then with Nick Long getting third at the Worlds, it kind of threw a wrench into the whole thing.
With Nick Long then reaching the podium at the World Championships, this meant there were only 2 options left open to Conor. That meant winning the Olympic trials or being the coach's choice. Still unable to compete, Conor's fate was in Corbin Sherrah's hands. His teammate was riding well, and Conor had to hope that a wildcard outsider wouldn't win the Olympic trials, making Corbin the coach's choice.
Now, Corbin Sherrah and myself, we were both, you know, the next 2 best guys to make this team. But if he didn't win the Olympic trials, how were they going to decide between the 2 of us for the last coach's selection spot?
Yeah, I was able to kind of come back and win the trials and get on the team for the games, even after sliding out at the Worlds in the semifinal in a qualifying position.
So for 2 weeks, I had to stress on that, and then watching that race, I had to stress on that, and I'm sure he had to stress on that too. But ultimately, he ended up winning, which left me the clear choice as the coach's selection.
And that was just a big stress reliever for me, as for that was before the Olympic Games and qualifying and doing all that. So being able to do really good there and get that win definitely took a lot of weight off my shoulders and just allowed me to race my bike the way I wanted to race and just go out and have fun instead of being stressed about making the team for the games.
At that point in time, we had 8 weeks before the Olympics, and that was when it was time I had to prove to the U.S. team that I was healthy enough to ride. My wrist was still broken, but if I wanted to race at the Olympics, I had to start riding. So I had a special custom brace made.
His custom brace was made of a stiff plastic designed to stop his wrist from moving and hope to limit any potential damage. And even with the special brace, all medical advice went against Conor competing. If Conor crashed again, the consequences could be life-changing.
I basically just rolled the dice that I wasn't going to crash again, because if I crashed again and I hurt my wrist, then could have been some permanent damage there.
With the brace now in place and a positive attitude, Conor had 8 weeks to convince the team he could be a contender for a podium position in Rio.
Yeah, so I was born in Texas, and I moved to Las Vegas when I was 4. So I don't really remember anything from Texas, so for me, Vegas has kind of always been home. So when I was decorating my house, I didn't want to put BMX stuff like all over the house, so what I decided to do was kind of make one room my BMX room, and then the rest of the house is, you know, normal. There's not trophies hanging out everywhere, so this is that room, so I'll just give you guys a quick tour.
From a very early age, he was obviously very proficient physically. He crawled fast, he walked pretty quickly, loved to run, was very active, and as he got a little older, became very interested in all kinds of sports, and he also was noticeably very good at all of them.
I was a super active kid. I played all different sports, but I always liked riding my bike, and I would ride in front of the house until the street lights came on and I had to come in for dinner. Popping wheelies, jumping off the curbs, you know, all the stuff kids normally do. Olympic bike from London, fully put together, everything but pedals.
Pretty close to the time when we did introduce him to the bike, when he was around 5 or 6, he started experiencing some frustration with the team sport competitions. He would be doing a stellar job, but the team would lose. And we noticed a very competitive streak from him who was not happy. He wasn't mean about it with the other kids or anything, but you could tell it really got to him.
Olympic trials jersey, 2012, first Olympic team, and then first time trial world title They're not doing those anymore, so they only ran for, I want to say, 6 years. So I got 2 of the 6. That's pretty cool. I was always a really competitive kid. I had struggled playing other sports because I would get frustrated when it was a team sport and the guys on the team weren't playing as hard as me. You know, because I just wanted to win so bad.
So I basically just thought that maybe he would be well served by doing an individual sport, a solo sport, so that he was only in competition basically with himself and would only have himself to either praise or blame.
And then when I was 7, my mom found a flyer at the local bike shop and it was advertising the local BMX track.
I was doing a fair bit of just road biking at the time and needed a part for my bike. So I went to a local bike shop here and saw on their counter a flyer for a local BMX track. And it was just one of those moments, call it a mother's instinct or something, where something just clicked. I did know that it was bike racing. That was about the only thing I knew. And figured it was kind of dangerous because it was somehow grouped in the extreme sport category. I called the number on the flyer and asked them, how dangerous is this sport? She goes, oh, it's not dangerous until they get a lot older, faster, heavier. Bring them over.
These are pretty cool. These are the x-rays that were taken right after I broke my wrist. You can see all the screws in there and stuff post-surgery, so that's pretty cool.
He was hooked. The very first day we took him just to watch, he was really excited about trying it. So we went home after that and figured out how we could modify his bicycle to be BMX approved on the track. He brought it the first day and hit the ground running. And it became evident very quickly how comfortable he was on that bike and the fact that he absolutely loved it.
We went out and checked it out. Next week, I had my helmet on in the car. I was so excited, and I started racing. I got 4th place in my first race, and I haven't stopped since. First trophy that I ever won, 1999, Nellis BMX, 4th place. So I think that's a pretty cool one to keep around. I was pretty good as a young rider. I got, top 5 in the US, and I did all right. Was on a factory team, things like that. I went through a period when I was about 12 to 14 where I wasn't very good, and I actually considered quitting the sport. I would go to races, I wouldn't make the finals. I would end up, 10th in the country, but when you start out and you're competing to win national championships at 10, 11, 12, and then all of a sudden when you're 13, you can barely make the final, or you're not as good as you used to be. It's tough pill to swallow. But I kept at it, I kept punching. I think I would have been about 12 when they announced that BMX was going to be in the Olympics.
Then in 2003, the IOC announced that BMX racing would be included in the 2008 Beijing Games for the first time.
At the time, I obviously thought it was cool, but I didn't fully understand what it meant for the sport. I think when it really hit me was when I was 15. I remember I was sitting in my bedroom at my parents' house. It was 3 in the morning because the games were in China. And I was waiting all night to watch the BMX, and I saw Mikey Day, Donnie Robinson get medals, and Jill Kittner get medals for the US. And watching it on TV and then seeing them on the podium, that was when it kind of hit me, whoa, that's pretty cool. And so at that moment is when I decided, I wanted to go to the Olympics one day too. And I wanted to have that feeling. And that's probably the single biggest event that made me get serious with my career.
Watching his role models on the podium was all the motivation Connor needed, and his journey on the road to London had begun.
Badges from the Olympics, trophies, Zolder, Polo Ralph Lauren sent me that nice bear. Participation certificate, that's what you get. You don't get a medal at the Olympics, so from London I got a participation certificate. So if that's not a bit of motivation, I don't know what is. As I turned 15, 16, I started to work a little harder and things kind of started ticking along, and I started getting some good results. I started the World Cup Series in 2009, was my first race. I was 16, and I got on the podium. And I think to this day, it's still the youngest rider who's ever made a final or been on a podium at a World Cup. And so that was kind of eye-opening to me and kind of showed me like, hey, you know, you have a chance of being good. You know, maybe you should really focus. And at that point is when I kind of started dedicating myself to my craft.
When he had, for instance, the need for knee surgery prior to 2012 and was really uncertain whether that would be in his future, even bicycling, period, recreationally would be in his future, I felt that same pain and worry with him. When he was training hard and pumped about it and feeling good, I would feel the same way.
I did have an injury when I was 16. I did do some work, and having a normal job really made me want to be a pro BMXer because I was working as a setup guy for the conventions here in town. I did it, you know, 3 or 4 times, where we would build the displays, and then after the convention was over, we'd take them down, $10 an hour. And doing that a few times was like, man, this BMX racing thing's pretty cool. Maybe I should train a little harder so I don't have to have a normal job.
I try not to focus too much on outcomes, and I've always really discussed that with him too. Just be in the moment, think about doing the best you can today, and everything will work out the way it's supposed to.
You know, fast forward the next 3 years, I was able to make the London US Olympic team at 19. I was the youngest rider in London, competing, was in contention for a medal.
So the lead up was very exciting and mysterious because I just didn't even go to that place of wondering, ooh, what could happen. I took it also a day at a time with him. But he said to me, it was like having every single emotion there is in the world on a scale of 1 to 10, out of 10, all at the same time.
I was in the final, I was the 1 seed. Things didn't go my way. I finished 7th place, tough pill to swallow. Felt like my world was ending. I almost won 2 world championship titles. I almost won another World Cup title, you know, and I almost was, really close to winning a bunch of big major championships. Am I meant to win a championship? Am I going to win the big one? Or am I always just gonna almost and be close?
Connor took the next 4 years to hone his skills and set his new goal, Rio 2016.
When older riders would say how important experience is, it was just their way of making it okay that they were a bit older. And I kind of didn't understand, how much experience really can be helpful. If you're having a bad day, you know how to come out of it. If you're having a bad stretch of races, you understand. Just keep punching and eventually you'll have a breakthrough and you'll come out of it. It's good to know kind of when you're older, more experienced, when to take a step back, when to take a step forward, that kind of thing. After London, I kind of learned a hard lesson and I decided to go back to school because I felt like I needed some balance in my life, and I also needed to recognize that maybe things don't always have that happy ending, so you have to be prepared for plan B. So I'm currently halfway done with school at university. I'm studying to get a business degree. I plan on retiring probably after the Tokyo Olympics. I'll be 28, and at that point I think it would be healthy. I'd be pro for 10 years. My whole life has been trying to figure out how to win a bike race. I think it'll be exciting to wake up in the morning with a new challenge and to push myself. Maybe it's not physically, maybe it's more intellectually pushing myself to do something. And ultimately what I want to do is I want to be a sports agent. And with other action sports being included in the Olympics, skate, surf, and possibly freestyle BMX in the future, I think that I would have a good insight to be able to help those athletes while being an action sport and Olympic athlete myself, to kind of help guide them through the whole process of being a professional action sports athlete and Olympic athlete all in one. Over the next 4 years, I had a lot of races, I had a lot of ups, I had a lot of downs, almost won a world championship, had a crash, won a few national championships, won a time trial world championship. So there was good, there was bad. And then in 2016, it was just the craziest year.
Watching Connor in the live telecast of competition in Rio was truthfully the most anxiety-provoking 5 days of my life. Connor was a lot calmer than I was. I think it was so important to me that there be that validation, what I felt was almost justice, given how hard he had worked and how things hadn't worked out for him.
I just want to cut her off real quick.
Yeah.
There's no way I was more calm than she was.
I was a wreck. I did not leave my house for 5 days. I hardly ate, I hardly slept. I mean, and it was such a relief when it ended the way that it did.
The rest is history. Connor Fields shadowed Nick Long until the third straight where he overtook his teammate to capture the gold medal.
He didn't lead from the start. He was patient and he got around that track and did what he does best and rode the heck out of the track and came across the line first.
He came into the Olympic Games refreshed and really inspired to win, and I think out of all the Americans, you know, he's one that carries that title of Olympic champion really well, and he's doing a lot of great things for the sport too.
My heart was lying with somebody else as my fiance was in the gate too, but you know, super happy for him and proud that he was able to put it together on the day.
Got the replica medal. This one's for whenever I need to be outside or do TV. It's a piece of plastic. I got it on eBay for 20 bucks. So maybe all the photos you've seen of the medal aren't real, but you don't know. My trainer, Sean, he came up to me before the final and he said, "Hey, Connor," and he looked me dead in the eye. He said, "Do you remember London 4 years ago? Do you remember how you felt and how you felt every day since then, knowing that you lost that opportunity?" I never had felt anything like this before. It triggered something inside of me, almost like a brain-body connection where I literally felt hungry. So it was a really cool kind of moment for me, and that is what kind of locked me in to that zone before that race, you know, and put me in that right position, that right mindset to go out and execute, because I didn't want to feel that way. 17 years of gate starts, of training, of jumping. I mean, it all just kind of switched on in that moment. My mom was the first person I called. She didn't make it down to Rio. And then my dad was the first person I saw. I mean, those are some really special moments because they literally were there with me every step of the way. All the hardships I'd been through, all the good times, all the bad times, all the injuries, you know, everything I'd been through since I was 7 years old kind of all came pouring out of me. And I saw, you know, our program director, Jamie Staff. I saw my coach, Sean Dwight. I saw my training partner, Trent. One of my good friends, Joey. And I just threw my bike and I just jumped into their arms and we all started celebrating. And for me, that was the coolest moment. That and seeing my dad, those were the coolest moments because those are the people that shared the journey with me. They rode the roller coaster, the ups, the downs with me. And to share in that moment with them was what made it all worth it.
17 years of training, grit, and determination had come to this point. Connor Fields had won the first Olympic gold medal in BMX for Team USA.
Everybody wants what I just won. You can't stop for a moment. You have to keep working because the minute you're like, oh, I'm good, I'm all right, I don't need to train today, someone else is ready to take your spot.